off your engine!
Well, it's pretty much official now. Toyota is killing all their V8 engine development, meaning that the twin-turbo Lexus LCF is dead. It's just a matter of time for V8 engines. The dinosaurs are starting to go extinct. The rumbling sound of the V8, you'll probably still hear it in oddball cars. Mustangs will probably always make them. People buy them because of the sound, exotic cars, and so on. But for normal cars, they pollute too much and they get worse gas mileage. Back in the day, they were a reasonable amount of V12 engines in my grandfather's time, but they got horrendous gas mileage. They cost a lot of money to make, so you get a combination of they want to make cars cheaper. So for power, you're going to see turbo V6s and electric motors. And combinations, of course, hybrids with electric and turbocharged gasoline engines if you want the ultimate in power. I was driving around a fancy Lexus a month ago, and yeah, it had a V6, but it also had electric motors. You start putting them all together, you can get even more power than a V8 puts out. Sure, it doesn't make the noise, you know, but hey, nostalgia. You can't live in the past, people. My wife accuses me of that all the time, though. And of course, with Lexus and Toyota itself, the V8s are a drop in the bucket. The cars that have V8s in them are but a tiny percentage of what they sell. You know, it's a business. You want to sell cars that you make a profit on, and it's nice to have cool sports cars and stuff floating around, but hey, if that's not your main business, you don't want to put all your money and research into it. It only makes sense. Why would you put your money into something that isn't going to make a profit? All that profitable. The guys with the Tundra is probably going to be whining because they like the big truck with a V8 engine, and I imagine Toyota will probably lose sales if they don't have V8 engines in them anymore. They'll lose sales to other companies that still have V8 engines. But then again, trucks are not really Toyota's business. They don't make that much money selling trucks. They don't compete with F-150 and Ram and Silverado. They sell trucks, but they don't sell that many big trucks. They sell a lot of Tacomas, but those are smaller trucks. Full-size trucks, the Tacomas never had V8s in them anyway, so you're going to see gradually the V8s are going to disappear and being taken over by other technologies. And this is just the handwriting on the wall that everybody knew was coming anyway. Believe it or not, there's an electric car out there that you can get for $865. I am not making this up, if you include the tax credits on it now. The company is called Candy Cocoa. It's a Chinese-made electric vehicle. If you look at it, it looks like kind of a cheap copy of a smart car. Now, they don't go that fast, but hey, for an inner-city car, if it's $865, got a friend in Oklahoma that got one, that's what he paid with the tax credits, they go 35 miles an hour. You can actually get a car for $865. I mean, when you look at it, it really looks for like a smart for two car. I mean, let's face it, if you can buy a car for $865, maybe not that bad of an idea. And the company Candy, K-A-N-D-I, is also working on another car that's going to be the cheapest electric car in America. It's called the K27. Kind of looks a little like a Fiat 500. You know, the Chinese, they like copying stuff. Now, this one has a top speed of 63 miles an hour and a range of up to 100 miles. Now, this isn't like the other one that was just kind of like a golf cart on steroids for $865. They say they're going to be as low as $12,999 after tax credits. And hey, if they can sell a car that cheap, an electric car, they can go 63 miles an hour. There's going to be people buying that. That's kind of a larger battery, 41.4 kilowatt hours. It's a pretty big battery. That's almost half the size of a Tesla that they say can go 70 miles an hour and go 188 miles on the road. Hey, I mean, watch out. The Chinese, they're serious about electric cars, and we all know they can make them cheaper than anybody else can. So, old Tesla, you better be shaking in your boots on this one. Like old Scotty said, if electric cars are going to make it, you're going to start with small ones, not big ones, small ones. Because a certain amount of people that want an electric car, green, they want a small car they can park in the city. They don't want some big thing that costs a small fortune. They want a small, cheap car. So it only makes sense to me. Now, here's a riddle. If you've been looking at Auto Trader and you're looking at red Genesis G70s, their fancy sports car, you're going to wonder, how come there's so many used red ones with less than 100 miles on it? Is this some kind of scam? Well, it turns out it isn't. There was a paint defect in a bunch of the red ones, so they had to take them back and repaint them. Well, then they have to be sold as used cars. Now, the paint was fixed at the factories, and then they wholesaled them back to the dealers. But they do have to sell them as used cars. So if you look at an Auto Trader and you wonder why there's a whole bunch of these red, they're always red because that's the one they messed up the paint on, Genesis G70s with less than 100 miles. Those are just cars that were at the dealer and they sent them back to the factory and then repainted them. So if you can get a deal on that, if you want a red Genesis, go right ahead. They're still not going to give them away. Realize they're still actually brand new cars that had to be repainted, but by law they have to be sold as used cars, so they got to knock something off. See how much you can get them to knock off. It probably won't be all that much, but at least now you know the truth of why there's so many red Genesis out there on Auto Trader for sale. They'd have less than 100 miles on it. It wasn't some kind of scam. It was just a factory repaint job. Roy Hines says, I got a bad radiator cap on my car. Can I drive it a while that way? All right. Well, the first question I'm going to ask is, why would you? Radiator caps hardly cost anything at all. You know, $7-8 at an auto parts store. Radiators are pressurized systems, okay? The higher the pressure inside the radiator, the higher the temperature of the water and coolant can get before it starts to boil. And that's a big deal. Because as long as the coolant is not boiling, it's still taking the heat from your engine and keeping the head gasket from blowing and the engine from melting. If you have a lower pressure radiator cap, you can't get as hot. It's plain physics. Now, if you got a bad radiator cap that's leaking pressure, you're going to start boiling coolant. Now, if you watch the temperature gauge and it doesn't get hot, you're not living in a hot place, just keep filling up with coolant. But the radiator caps are so cheap. Now, what you want to do, you say you have a bad radiator cap, but take the radiator cap off when it's cold and look inside. A lot of times, cars these days have plastic radiators. A lot of times, you take that cap off and you'll see under it, the radiator itself, the plastic is chipping and corroded. And where the radiator cap rubber gasket sits, a lot of times you'll see cracks, so it doesn't seal anymore. You want to check that. If that's broken, you got to get a new radiator. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. But don't whine because there's so much aftermarket radiators these days. Make your head spin, and they're all made in China, most of them, and they work perfectly fine. I've been buying them for decades. Sometimes I can get a radiator for $59. Even for a BMW, the dealer wants like $1,500. I can get aftermarket ones for like $250. So they're not that expensive. If your radiator is bad, replace it and the cap. And for all those who maintain your own cars, what the heck? If your radiator cap's more than 5-6 years old, just go buy another one. They're spring loaded. The springs wear out. The seals get eaten up. Just replace it every once in a while. It's a cheap fix to keep you from ruining your engine. Chris Claudio says, Scotty, I got a 2012 Kia Optima, 135,000 miles, automatic tranny. We don't drive it much. When he started, it goes 4,000 RPM the whole time. Let's pray your throttle is just sticking, and that's typical if you don't drive it much. I have a video that shows you how you can clean it yourself. It's called Make Your Car Run Better with a Little Spray Cleaner. You can buy the 2 cans for like $14 together, 7 each. Do the cleaning of the throttle. Probably sticking. Now, if it isn't sticking, that's a gasoline direct injection. The throttles are run by computer. That system's breaking down. Could be that the electronic throttle needs to be replaced. But since you said it sits a lot, they often will carbon up, and cleaning them will fix them. Do my video. Clean it. That often will fix it without having to spend any money. Because that's new enough, 2012. There's no throttle cable that the cable can stick because there isn't a cable on it. And that's what will often happen when they sit too long. They gum up and then they stick. So clean that. Fixes it. Do that maybe once a year. Prevent buildup so it won't do it again. Mitsubishi One says, I got a 1994 Ford Thunderbird with 75,000 miles in the V8. Many major things have been replaced. It's got a rebuilt transmission and engine. Tell me something happening. If you're talking about buying it, you say that you're thinking about buying it. 94 Thunderbird, one of the worst cars they ever made. That's really what led to the demise of Thunderbird. They didn't make them. And then they came back with that other Thunderbird, and it was a pile of junk. Oh, the new Thunderbird. Come on, buy it, buy it, buy it, buy it, buy it. It was junk. They had electrical problems, they had all kinds of problems. They're worth nothing. And that 94 is an absolutely worthless car. And you can see it's had the transmission, the engine replaced. Don't buy it. It's worth nothing. They're not collector's items. They were cookie cutter, junky cars. Don't waste your money buying that car. It's not worth anything, and as you see, it's already had the engine and transmission replaced, and who knows what it was replaced with. Guys, I say, yeah, I put a new engine in. Yeah, it came from a junkyard or something, new to that car, but not brand new. Stay away from that thing. It's not worth buying it. They were junky to begin with. That's pretty much what finished Thunderbirds off for a while. Then they brought the new one back, and whatever you do, don't buy one of the new ones. They're really junky. Unless you want something to look at. They're cool looking, but don't buy one as an everyday transportation because they're very undependable. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.